4-hour flight to Chile with a stiff neck and no leg space was uncomfortable, but not the kind I was looking for. There were multiple occasions where I started to grasp what it meant to be uncomfortable, challenged by choice. After getting to a campus where I didn't know anyone, I couldn't help but keep smiling. Not sure if it was because I was unbelievably sleep deprived or the eagerness coursing through my bloodstream from the microwaved ravioli on the flight, but I was ready to make new friends, new memories, and learn new skills. One of the first things that put me out of my comfort zone was when we got freedom in town to walk around by ourselves and shop for those chuggy souvenirs that ended up getting thrown away. I was determined to try and not buy anything that I would later find in my duffel and regret purchasing. The only thing that could come to mind was food. This wouldn't take up any space in my bag and certainly wouldn't regret buying. In order to find the best places to eat, we were going up to locals asking where the hidden gems were. This didn't come across too well, as they thought we were asking for a different kind of hidden gem, but there was this one lady that stopped us, and it was the perfect time to attempt to use my Spanglish. Let's just say that I wish I could have told my 6th grade self not to take 5 years of Chinese just to end up in a Spanish-speaking country. I was nervous because I didn't want to mess up and say something stupid or make it look any more obvious that I was trying to speak Spanish. Anyways, she was so curious about why there were 42 kids running around with matching bright blue backpacks. We simply explained that we were with a school that goes on expeditions in the backcountry like kayaking and backpacking. She proceeded to tell us about her adventures too, and was showing us photos on her phone to the places she's gone. After our long convo about the places we want to explore, we almost left without asking her about a good place for authentic food. We walked around the corner to her suggested food spot, and all we could see was a fire station. Surely not. We got closer, and apparently they were selling empanadas on the first floor restaurant, like with a little pop-up table outside, like it was a lemonade stand or something. They were delicious, absolutely the best thing I had while I was there. I'm not sure if it was actually the food or the memory of walking back to the bus with a hot empanada in my hand. Trusting the locals became normal because they knew where the good staples were. This made me want to go up to everyone else and ask about their life story, because sometimes you have a lot more in common than you think. As the semester progressed, there continued to be defining moments that pushed me out of my comfort zone. Undoubtedly, the best memories are the ones that are not planned. On the last expedition of the semester, there was a whitewater rafting portion on the Salmon River. In typical fashion, there were 2 large paddle rafts ready for the adventure. What didn't seem to fit the scenario were the copious amounts of hardshell kayaks ready to take the rapids too. Don't get me wrong, we've kayaked plenty over the semester, but kayaking down Class 3 rapids should be left to the professionals. Nope, I was thrown into one. While I was concentrating on the river that lay ahead of me, all I could think about was becoming part of the Alzart swim team. Becoming part of the swim team meant that you flipped in your kayak in a rapid and had to swim out. Not the kind of swim team you want to join unless, of course, you are into collecting stickers. And if you ask me, like, welcome to the club, here's a sticker. Up to this point, I had prided myself on avoiding membership, but the Salmon River Rapids beat me that day. I would go back and do it all over again, just without the lingering thought of my fate in the hands of a sticker. One of the funniest and most embarrassing moments happened during Spirit Week. Each day had a theme, and I had a plan. PJ Day went by pretty smoothly. People rolled off their bunk beds and went to breakfast and classes pretty easily. The next day's theme was Wacky Wednesday. The night before, I laid out each clothing item meticulously. I woke up and put all of my wacky layers on, not realizing that none of my yurt mates were putting on their wacky clothes. As I walked into the dining hall, I started to notice there was a boycott on the theme. There I was, standing in the dining room, ready for breakfast, in leggings layered with fuzzy cupcake-covered shorts, a bright blue string bikini top over my sweatshirt, and crazy socks paired with sandals. Suddenly, all eyes were on me. I felt the heat of their stares, my cheeks turned bright red, and my heart dropped. I thought, what do I do now? Smile, laugh, run? Then some level of confidence kicked in, and I decided to embrace the silliness. The rest of the day, I saw people with backwards sweatshirts, socks up to their kneecaps, and even a banana suit. Not taking yourself too seriously felt good for all of us. These experiences are only a fraction of what I hope lies ahead in my future. I've been lucky to have opportunities that led me to my understanding of what it means to be uncomfortable. I'm pretty sure at the beginning of this speech, I said I like to be thrown into the uncomfortable. However, I hope to let myself now decide that life is challenged by choice and to put myself in those awkward situations because it could turn out to be the best experience yet. Thank you.
Our second speaker today is Mia Diaz. Mia will be introduced by Ms. Hallbaker.
Good morning. When Mia asked me to introduce her for today's speech, images of our first year together immediately came to mind. Meeting middle school Mia at the snack bar doors to walk her to her upper school class. On our walks, we chatted about what was happening in our middle school world and prepared to learn alongside new upper school friends. Mia embraced her adventure with courage and good spirit. Studying a language was new to Mia, and I tried to reassure her that part of the process of language proficiency includes the silent phase, when students receive input in the language and delay producing it. Mia's forte is writing, so this was a small frustration for her as she developed sufficient skills to use the language at the level she wanted to. Writing, Mia was always writing in class. It was amazing to see how eagerly she worked to express her own ideas in a new language. Then came the cooking project, where Mia and David Kaplan joined forces to create an amazing video of their culinary creation, narrated, of course, in Spanish. It was delicious. You may know Mia as part of the cast in theater, as a member of an affinity group, pep club, or other club. Mia has dedicated 3 years to the CAL, supporting countless students with Peel, DBQs, and essays for your classes. The CAL provided a gentle and easy way for her to relate to peers as she asked them to change their work and ask the right questions to help them improve. Mia displays ever-present cheer and willingness to involve herself fully in upper school life, its fun and challenges throughout her years. Beyond collegiate, Mia has worked at Subway and concessions at the main event. The opportunity to work with the public was both a challenge for Mia and a gift to others as she and her crew worked to make parties special for kids and families. Mia is a certified trainer at the main event and continues to grow her leadership skills, which will serve her well in years to come. About Mia, others say that she is dedicated to her own learning, kind and generous, a great writer, and especially talented poet. Let's welcome Mia as she steps over to share her message with us this morning. Thank you.
When I was just a little eighth grader listening to my first senior speech on Step Up Day, I decided that when I was a freshman, every single Thursday, I would record how long each senior speech was and start by telling you all today how many years, days, hours, minutes, seconds, milliseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds, and picoseconds of time I've spent listening to senior speeches in my collegiate life. I thought my idea was original, artful, and simply spectacular. But then COVID happened, and sorry to the class of 2020, but I listened to very few Zoom senior speeches that year. In protest of the pandemic and the consequent failure of my speech idea, I deleted the notes document I used to record the times. Hence, unfortunately, I do not have this information to share with you all. Instead, today I will be talking about why I hate the deep life-altering questions I found embedded in the Common App. And for all of you that are lucky enough to not know what the Common App is, it is the platform used to apply for colleges. My initial conundrum with the Common App is the how do you identify yourself multiple choice question. The options are A, American Indian or Alaska Native, B, Asian, C, Black American, D, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, and E, white. For most of you, this answer would be simple, but it's always one that I struggle with. In fact, I wrote a really in-depth essay on my identity for one of my colleges, but the real reason why I hate this question isn't as carefully articulated. I've primarily been raised as an African-American woman, as that is what my mom, my primary caregiver, identifies as. So typically, when asked my ethnicity, Black or African American, aka option C, would be my box. However, that is not all that I am. My dad was from Barbados and Puerto Rico, but died when I was 12, so I'm often left to suppress that side of myself. I know I'm not alone in my grief, and most of us have experienced death in some capacity where it's easy to bury the trauma and put on a happy face. As I've gotten older, though, I've become more aware of how important it is to no longer ignore my Latina heritage and acknowledge that even though my dad has passed, his culture still lives within me. Another concept I've struggled with throughout my life is academics, though maybe not for the reason you may think. I've always performed well in school, but it constantly tells me that that isn't good enough. So when I moved on to the academic portion of the Common App and saw what is more of an, I guess, fill in the blank question, my heart sank. What is your cumulative GPA? Now I can see why this information may be useful for colleges to have. But as someone who has struggled with being a perfectionist and having my grades define my worth, I was embarrassed by anything under a 4.0 GPA. In all honesty, I can't truly offer, and I've become so much better at combating this issue, and here's how I've grown response. Actually, at the time I was writing this speech, and just this week, I've studied diligently for Mr. Kimmel's psychology Kahoot solely so I could have a shot at receiving 5% extra on a test as a reward for coming in first place. Unfortunately, I dropped the ball this week and came in fourth, but I'll be back next time. Anyway, I know it's hard to break old habits, but I hope to go to college with the mindset that grades aren't everything. And if I can't achieve that thinking, I know that literally no one will probably ever ask me about my high school weighted or unweighted cumulative GPA. Hence, I must thank Mr. Carr and AP Bio for humbling me and taking my GPA so I could realize, and hopefully inspire you all to realize, that your GPA doesn't define who you are, and colleges look at so much more than that one number. Speaking of what colleges look at, my next problem with Common App is the what is your intended major question. Now again, I can see why that would be something a college would want to know, but it feels like all my life, and especially this year, to ask me, where are you going to college, or what do you want to be? But the answer to both of these questions up until last week was I don't know. Even though I now know my dream school at Emory University, I still don't really know what I want to do. I hate that society makes most of us feel like we have to have everything figured out when we really don't. I'm a very indecisive person and feel as if the fate of my future rests on these two questions. So, as many of my friends seem to make jokes about, I have gaslit myself into thinking undecided isn't good enough and thus applied to 3 very different majors. The first major is business. I've marked business as my intended major for many of my colleges, even though I'm fully expecting it to change, as I've realized through the Finding My Purpose co-ed class, a cubicle business job doesn't really align with what I love or my strengths. Still, as many of you juniors may start to be feeling, coming to the decision of applying for a specific major is enough of a struggle in the first place. That not all colleges have a business major. Therefore, because business, pre-law, and psychology have so much in common, I began to split my remaining application's intended major question between pre-law and psychology. Frankly, I do not want to be a psychologist, and my introduction to legal thinking GOA is showing me that being a lawyer is way too much work, so I guess we'll just see how this pans out for me. Luckily, for all of you that haven't taken the Finding My Purpose co-ed class, there's still hope for you, so please pay attention for your own sake. Overall, I've never been one to fit into a box. I came to collegiate because the traditional public school path wasn't for me, so I'm glad to finally be at a school where people can be whoever and whatever, and as long as it fits into the dress code, it doesn't really matter. To leave off, I'll tell you all a quote I found from some random philosophic wise guy on the internet. I like messy people, people who don't fit into a box or stay between the lines, but whose integrity is greater than any rule book and whose loyalty is stronger than blood. I know that my fellow messy people are out there, or someone who's also like me, a widely indecisive perfectionist, so this quote is for you all. Stop trying to fit into some box that others like to be. Instead, live your boundless life like you want to live it. I promise, even if it doesn't feel like it, your authentic self is special and enough. Thank you.
Our final speaker today, Bob. Can you hear me? Can the world?
Can you guys hear us in the back? It's not working. Testing. Is that better? Better? No? Hello? Let's see.
Bop, 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 bop.
Testing, testing. Okay, nope. Yes, yes, that's it. Okay, Masha, you're gonna be a rock star and hold it like this during your senior speech. Are you okay with that? Can we try that? Can we try it? I'm worried about putting it back in. It's in and out. Okay, or you're just gonna have to speak loudly.
Wait, okay, never mind. Bop, bop, bop. I don't know why I make that noise. Can you hear me?
No, it's not bad. It's just a connection. Put it on here. Are you just talking to it?
Can you hear me? Testing,
Yeah, we'll know.
testing, talking.
There's something about it.
Ba ba ba. Testing,
Yeah, and
testing.
just don't touch it if you can avoid it. Yeah, just be
Okay, our final speaker today is Masha Shtapova. Masha will be introduced by her father, Dmitry Shtapov.
Good morning. When Masha asked me to introduce her for her senior speech, I thought, wow, that is an opportunity of a lifetime. How many people get a chance to do this? Probably very few, unless you're Miss Prince or other collegiate teachers. Then Masha provided me with the 3 pages of requirements for the introduction. It has to be funny, but not too provocative. It can be more than 3 minutes long. And I thought to myself, I'm not a professional speechwriter. What should I do? And my first instinct was, let's use ChatGPT. I see Masha using it all the time for her status papers. But then I thought that would probably qualify as a plagiarism, and I decided to write it myself. So here you go. When introducing Masha, I wanted to highlight 3 things that make her stand out from her friends. So number 1, efficiency in completing the tasks and her attention to details. Some may call it OCD. To paraphrase an old saying, if you want something done right, ask Masha to do it. Number 2, great communication skills. Some people think that she talks too much, so she may need to continue polishing these skills at UK. Number 3, Masha's been an athlete her entire life. She started gymnastics when she was 4 years old, but she had to retire from this sport early after a life-changing injury. She fractured her toe. She picked swimming as her new obsession, and she achieved great results in just a few years. But if you ask Masha what sports she hates the most, she'll say gymnastics and swimming. Using a quote from Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about Masha. Without further ado, I give you Masha Shtapova.
Childhood is made up of many memories, including the shows we used to watch.
From Dinosaur Train to Total Drama Island, from SpongeBob to Phineas and Ferb. Now, recently, I was babysitting a second grader that was watching the show called Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. And while many of you may not know it, it brought back so many memories I forgot I had. The main idea of the show was that Ned would give survival tips on how to navigate life, which got me to thinking about what I wish I had known when growing up. So I created my own guide on the lessons I learned over the years. Tip number 1, surround yourself around good people. In preschool, I had a friend named Sarah, and she was extremely controlling to say the least. I wasn't allowed to have any other friends besides her, so I accepted my fate and spent every waking hour with her, until one day. On a particularly gloomy morning, a couple of my classmates invited me to play house. I made the bold decision to say yes, knowing Sarah would be mad, but 2 seconds later I went over and invited her to play as well. She accepted my proposal with a smirk on her face, and my innocent self had no idea what she was planning behind those deceitful eyes. When we started playing, she decided that I most resembled a dog, which would be my role, and I gladly accepted. As the others cooked breakfast, I crawled around the kitchen barking. After a while, my knees started hurting, and I stood up to take a short break. However, this was not acceptable to Sarah, as I broke character. Filled with rage, she took the toy frying pan she was cooking with and hit me in the head with it. While I was only out for several seconds, this moment changed my life. Although I immediately forgave her after she very hesitantly apologized, I was able to see that I could and should be friends with whoever I wanted. Since then, I have learned how important it is to be friends with people that don't force you to change. Now I have an amazing group of people in and outside of school who accept me for who I am. Everyone needs to have good people around themselves to ensure that they have a positive experience growing up. Tip number 2, be confident. My grandma is one of the most confident people I know. Now, although she doesn't own any bears, she is very much Russian. Both of my grandparents live in Russia and can barely speak any English, but they still travel to America to visit us. Due to her unwavering bravery, my grandma has overcome her biggest struggle in America, the mall, but not without any mishaps. As she is somewhat oblivious to societal rules, she doesn't understand the simple technology of a line. On one occasion, we were at a Macy's. When buying something from the store, she ignored every person standing behind the register, walked right on up to the cashier, held out her item, and proudly asked, "How much?" in her thick accent. Another incident occurred after a truly draining day at the mall, where we decided to go to the food court. She again avoided the line, went up to the counter, and while having me attempt to translate the menu, reached into a box of free samples. Only it wasn't a free sample. It was a man holding his box of food that she had reached into and taken from. After my 10-year-old self profusely apologized to the tall man, my grandma still had no idea what she had done wrong. Her relentless confidence allows her to do whatever she wants without care. Now, you don't have to be a short, white-haired Russian grandma to have confidence, but it can certainly help. Ignoring how others might perceive you allows you to be your carefree, authentic self. It gives you the ability to constantly move forward in life, ready to take on new challenges. Tip number 3, don't be a sore loser. I have always been competitive, but as a child, it was a bit extreme. I couldn't imagine anything worse than losing and anything better than winning. My first memory of true competition was playing Monopoly with my brother, and although it ended with screaming and crying, it made me find a love for competitions and games. Since then, no one in my family has played Monopoly. But the same year as that traumatizing event, there was a competition that acts as a milestone for many collegiate students, the Kindergarten Derby. The day had come as we sat in our little chairs with the entire school surrounding us. I had made it to the final race. As Mr. Maine commanded our little army of jockeys to the line, I was forced to stand on the outside, which I thought was extremely unfair. But before I knew it, we were off. I ran fast, holding my brightly colored horse as tight as possible, making sure not to be the kid that drops it. Running, I passed one person after another, with the wind rushing through my poorly cut bangs. And then I crossed the finish line, but I had come in fourth, which I thought was insanely embarrassing. So when my parents came up to congratulate me, I started bawling my eyes out. The humiliating pictures of my tear-streaked face ruined what should have been a joyous experience. But those pictures taught me that it doesn't matter if you win or lose. So rather than looking at how something might end, focus on the journey leading up to that end. There is no need to get caught up in losing a game or getting a bad grade. So don't be a sore loser when it comes to things, because all it does is ruin the experience, which is the most important part. Tip number 4. Lastly, treasure your memories. As kids, all of us want to do is grow up. But once we do, we look back and long for the unforgettable moments we made when we were little. From sitting in Miss Hendricks' classroom, learning how to spell with shaving cream on our desks, to doing the 4th grade Mesopotamia project. from the St. Louis field trip to watching Mr. Franco trying to dunk, from Dr. Sal's dance parties to graduation in the spring. I think it's crazy to recognize how quickly time can fly, and that you need to embrace the extraordinary memories, the embarrassing moments, and especially the devastating mistakes made over the years. No one is perfect, and everyone makes mistakes, so learn from them, and learn from the mistakes of others. I happened to find my guide from a silly little show, but make sure to look out for the people around you and try to give tips on how to help them navigate life, because that's what most of us are trying to do. Find our way. Thank you.
Can we have another round of applause for all our amazing speakers?